The planet Niera was calm and green. Trees danced with the wind. Birds sang soft songs. The sun was rising, painting the sky with orange light. The Niari people, a peaceful alien race with soft fur, cat-like ears, and golden eyes, lived in small villages. They loved nature. They sang songs, farmed food, and watched the stars every night. They had no weapons, no armies, no hate. They were not ready for what came next. From the black sky, giant Drexian warships appeared, cold and dark, like death. No sound, no warning. Just shadows covering the land. Then dash-fire metal pods dropped from the sky like deadly rain. The earth shook as they landed. Out of them came the Drexians, tall, armored soldiers with glowing red visors. They moved like machines. No mercy. No pause. The slaughter had begun. They shot Niari, who ran. They captured others, dragging them into metal cages like animals. Children screamed. Mothers cried. Homes were burned. Trees were cut down. The peaceful villages turned into fields of ash and blood. In one small village, a young Niari girl named Sari held her little sister Mira tightly. "Stay still." "Don't move," Sari whispered, hiding behind a stone wall. Her ears twitched with every sound. Blaster fire, screams. Footsteps. A Drexian soldier came closer. He scanned the area. His gun was ready. He saw movement and raised his weapon. Before he could fire, a human voice ordered, "Hold your fire." It was Commander Raylan Ward, a human officer working with the Drexian Order. He wore a black uniform and carried a blaster, but his eyes were not cold like the others. "They are unarmed," Raylan said. "They're just children," Rexian responded without emotion. "Orders are clear. Eliminate or capture." Raylan stared at the small figures hiding behind the wall. He saw fear, not danger. Not monsters. Just two scared girls. He stepped forward, standing between the soldier and the Niari. "Check the other side," he ordered. "I'll sweep here." The Drexian paused, then turned away. Raylan didn't look back. He just walked away slowly, pretending not to see the two girls huddled together. That night, at the Drexian base, Niari captives sat in cages, cold, tired, some crying softly. Raylan watched them through a glass wall. His face showed nothing. But inside, something was breaking. He had fought in many wars, seen blood, pain, even death. But this was different. This wasn't a war. This was a hunt. His communicator beeped. A message from High Command. "All field officers. No mercy, no exceptions. Niari are classified as non-intelligent life forms, not protected under the Galactic Code." Raylan read it twice. Then again, "non-intelligent." He remembered Sari's eyes. Intelligent, curious, terrified. He turned off the screen. Later that night, he walked through the camp. A young soldier stopped him. "Sir, we found a small Niari group hiding near the river." Orders. Raylan didn't answer at once. He stared into the dark trees. "I'll go check myself," he said. In the forest, he found a small Niari girl hiding under a tree. She was maybe 5 years old. Her tail trembled. She looked up, afraid. Raylan slowly knelt. "It's okay," he whispered. "I'm not here to hurt you." She didn't understand his words, but she didn't run. He gently picked her up. She was so light, so fragile. Then a voice came behind him. "Another soldier. Commander." "Did you find something?" Raylan stood. "False alarm. It's just a damaged scanner." The soldier nodded and left. Raylan looked down at the girl in his arms. He couldn't bring her back to the cages. He just couldn't. That night, he opened a back gate of the camp and carried her out. He set her free near the edge of the forest. She looked back at him once, then disappeared into the trees. Raylan stood there for a long time. Something inside him had changed. The next morning, he sat in the control room, watching satellite footage. Fires burned where villages used to be. Drones circled above, hunting survivors. It was quiet. Too quiet, then a red alert blinked on his monitor. Unauthorized access detected. He clicked the message. It read, "Commander Ward, your actions have been recorded. High Command is watching." Raylan leaned back in his chair. He had crossed a line. He just didn't know how deep it would go. But one thing was now clear. This was no longer someone else's war. It was now his. Commander Raylan Ward couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw them. The Nayari girls crying behind metal bars, the village burning, and the little one he had set free, disappearing into the forest. The orders were simple. Follow command, stay silent, obey. But something deep inside him was changing. A voice that whispered, "This is wrong." At morning briefing, the air inside the Drexian warship was cold and tense. Holograms of Nyari. Villages flickered above the command table. Officers discussed strategies and supply lines like they were planning a hunting trip, not a war. A high-ranking Drexian commander pointed to the map and said, "We have captured 63%. The rest will fall within 2 cycles. Once complete, the harvest phase begins." Raylan felt sick. Harvest. They were talking about living beings. After the meeting, he walked through the holding cells. Behind the glass, Nyari prisoners sat silently. Some were injured. Some were too weak to move. A few stared at him as he passed, their golden eyes full of fear. And one pair of eyes, he recognized them. Sari, the girl from the village, was in one of the cages. Her little sister, Myra, was gone. Raylan stopped. "Where's the other one?" He asked the guard. "Died during transport." The guard answered coldly. "Weak species." Raylan looked back at Sari. Her face didn't move. But her eyes told a different story. A storm was inside her. Grief, anger, and confusion. She didn't understand why this was happening. And neither did Raylan. That evening, Raylan returned to his quarters and opened a secret data channel. It was highly illegal. He had stolen the code from a Drexian officer. Slowly, he accessed hidden mission files. What he found chilled his blood. The Nayar were not wild creatures. They were registered as an intelligent species 5 years ago. A peaceful civilization with art, music, history. The galactic code protected them from being attacked. But those records had been deleted. Someone had wiped their status, made them look like animals. Raylan leaned back in his chair. "This is a cover-up," he whispered. He had to tell someone. But who? Most humans in the fleet believed the lies. They trusted the Drexian leadership. They believed the Nyari were dangerous or non-intelligent. No one would believe him without proof. Then he made a decision. He went back to the holding cells, waited until night, and used his officer clearance to open one of the cages. It was Sari's. She backed away in fear. Raylan held up his hands. "I won't hurt you," he said slowly. "You need to run, now." She didn't move. He stepped back and pointed to the open door. "I saw your village. I saw your people. I know the truth," he said. Sari looked at him for a long moment. Then she stepped out. Raylan led her through the dark hallway, avoiding cameras and guards. At the back gate, he opened the emergency exit. "Go east," he told her. "There's forest. Hide there. Don't stop running." Before she ran, she looked up at him. Her eyes were wide, still afraid. But a little softer now. She disappeared into the shadows. The next day, chaos hit the camp. "A prisoner has escaped." An officer shouted. Someone opened the cell manually. Raylan stood quietly among the soldiers. No one suspected him yet. But he knew this wouldn't last long. Later that night, he opened the hidden files again. There was something else. A secret lab location. Drexian Bioresearch Base 14. Coordinates near the polar mountains. Purpose: specimen modification. He stared at those words for a long time. Then he downloaded the data onto a small chip and hid it in his boot. He needed to go there. He needed to know what the Drexians were really doing with the captured Nyari. Suddenly, a loud knock on his door broke the silence. "Commander Ward, report to the bridge immediately." His heart raced. He opened the door. 2 Drexian soldiers stood there. "What's this about?" he asked, trying to sound calm. "Interrogation, standard protocol," one replied. They weren't smiling. They weren't offering explanations as Raylan walked between them down the metal corridor. He knew one thing for sure. They were starting to suspect him, and he was now walking a deadly path. The room was cold and dark. A single white light shone above Commander Raylan Ward as he sat alone on the metal chair. The walls were silent, but Raylan knew they were watching. He could feel the eyes of the Drexians behind the glass, studying him, judging him. A door slid open. A Drexian officer walked in, tall, armored, his face hidden behind a dark helmet. "We have questions, Commander," the officer said. His voice was flat, emotionless. "I'm listening," Raylan replied calmly. "There was a security breach 2 nights ago," the officer began. "A Nyari prisoner escaped. The gate logs show someone with officer access opened the door." Raylan kept his expression steady. "I was on duty that night. Maybe someone used my clearance. Or maybe you used it yourself." The room fell silent. Raylan didn't answer. He knew denial wouldn't work forever. The Drexians were not stupid. They would keep watching him, waiting for him to slip again. The officer leaned forward. "You've always followed orders, Commander. Don't make the mistake of growing a conscience now." Then he left. Raylan sat there for another hour before they let him go. But he understood something very clearly now. He was being watched. And worse, he was already labeled a possible traitor. He returned to his quarters in silence. His thoughts were sharp and fast. He had to move quickly before they decided to act. That night, he accessed the stolen coordinates from the data chip hidden in his boot. The lab he found in the files, Drexian Bioresearch Base 14, was real. And it wasn't far. A supply shuttle was heading near that sector in 6 hours. He had one chance. Raylan changed into a technician's uniform, slipped past the night patrol, and entered the shuttle bay. His forged ID worked barely, and no one questioned him. As he boarded the small transport, by the time anyone noticed he was missing, he would be long gone. The journey to the polar region was rough. Ice storms covered the land. Drexian satellites circled above, but the shuttle's stealth tech kept him hidden. He landed quietly near the research base, a black building half buried in snow. There were no guards outside. Strange, too quiet. Raylan moved fast, climbing through a side vent and entering the lower level of the facility inside. The air was cold and smelled of chemicals. He walked through the dark halls, passing locked doors and strange machines. Then he found it a room full of glass tanks, and inside those tanks were Nyari children. Some asleep, some floating in strange liquid, some not moving at all. Raylan stepped closer. One of the tanks had a name written on it, Mira. His heart stopped. It was Sari's little sister, but she wasn't dead. She was alive, eyes closed, floating, wires connected to her head and arms. Her fur looked pale, her body thin. Raylan backed away, shock and rage building inside him. This was no rescue mission. This was a horror show. He pulled out his datapad and began recording everything: images, tank data, research files. This was proof. Real, undeniable proof. Suddenly, an alarm blared. He had triggered a silent sensor. Lights turned red. Doors locked down. Footsteps echoed from above. They were coming. Raylan grabbed the datapad and ran through the side corridor. He found a maintenance hatch and crawled through, barely escaping the guards. Outside, a blizzard had begun. Snow and wind slammed against his body as he ran back to his shuttle. Lasers fired behind him. He didn't stop. He jumped into the shuttle, powered it up, and launched into the sky. Blasts followed him, but he made it barely as the ship flew. Away from the burning clouds, Raylan looked down at the datapad. "Mira is alive," he whispered. "They're experimenting on them, like lab rats." Back at the main Drexian base, panic had begun. Commander Ward had gone dark. A stolen shuttle. Missing access codes, unauthorized files. It was enough for the Drexians to make it official. Commander Raylan Ward is now classified as a traitor too. The order, kill on sight. His face was placed on every screen. His own people would now hunt him. Hours later, Raylan hid in an abandoned outpost deep in the wastelands. He checked his data. Proof was saved. Now he needed help. But who could he trust? Suddenly, a signal blinked on his console. An incoming message encrypted. He opened it carefully. A Nyari voice spoke softly through static. "You helped one of U.S. escape. We remember. We are hidden. We want to fight back. If you are truly with us, come find us." Raylan sat back. He had nothing left. No rank, no allies, no home. But now, he had a mission. And maybe, just maybe, a chance to fight back. Snow covered everything. Mountains rose like white giants under a cold gray sky. Commander Raylan Ward, now a wanted man, moved quietly through the ice-covered forest. Each step was slow. He was tired, cold, and hunted. But something inside him kept going, the voice of a Nyar calling for help. The message had come 2 nights ago, a signal from deep inside the northern mountains. Someone had seen what he did, saving Sari, exposing the lab, escaping the Drexians. Someone was watching and willing to trust him. He had followed the signal's coordinates into the wild. No roads, no cities, no ships. Just frozen silence. Then, as he reached a ridge, something strange happened. His wrist scanner went dead. No signal. No power. Static buzzed in his earpiece, and ahead of him, the mountains shimmered like heat waves. A cloaking field. Raylan smiled. Clever. He stepped forward. And the illusion broke. Below him, hidden inside the valley, was a massive structure, carved into the cliffs, built with glowing crystal towers and wooden bridges. A Nyari city still alive. He stood there for a moment, frozen. He thought they were all gone, hunted, erased. But here they were, hiding. Surviving, a soft voice behind him said, "Don't move." Raylan slowly raised his hands. From the trees, 5 Nyar stepped out, ball-like weapons aimed at his chest. Their fur was painted with war colors, their eyes sharp. One of them stepped closer. It was a female, tall, with silver-gray fur and deep golden eyes. She looked at Raylan for a long moment. "You are the human they speak of," she said. Raylan nodded. "I came to help." She didn't lower her weapon. "Why would a human help us?" Raylan didn't blink. "Because I saw what they did. I saw the cages. I saw the children. I saw Mira." At that name, another Nyari younger, with golden-brown fur, gasped. "Mira, you saw my sister." It was Sari. She stepped out from behind the group. Eyes were wide, filled with shock and emotion. You're the one who opened my cage." Raylan gave a small nod. "You ran. I didn't know if you made it." Sari walked forward. Her hands trembled. "I thought I'd never see you again," she whispered. The silver-furred Nyari gave a signal, and the others lowered their weapons. "Come with us," she said. Raylan followed them down a narrow path into the valley. The hidden city came into full view. Glowing lanterns lit the streets. Nyari families moved quietly, their eyes watching Raylan with curiosity and fear. They didn't trust humans anymore. Why would they? Raylan was taken to a meeting hall carved into the mountain. The silver-furred Nyari introduced herself as Kayla, one of the last Nyari war leaders. "You brought proof?" she asked. Raylan placed the data pad on the table. Images of the lab, the tanks, Mira's body floating in the tube, everything played in silence. Some Nyari turned away. Others cried. Kayla stood still, watching it all. When it ended, she looked at Raylan with fire in her voice. "They told us humans were allies of the Drexians," she said. "They said you believed we were animals." "Some do," Raylan admitted. "But not all. And if I can show the truth, maybe more will stand with you." Kayla was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "You are one man. We are few. The Drexians have ships, weapons, armies. What can we do?" Raylan stood tall. "We fight back." Kayla raised an eyebrow. "Fight? With what?" Raylan smiled. "You have warriors, I have training. Together, we can start something they don't expect, a rebellion." Siri stepped beside him. "Kay saved me. He didn't have to, I believe." "Him?" Slowly, Kayla nodded. "Then we prepare." Over the next days, Raylan trained the Nyari. He showed them how to use stolen weapons, build traps, and track patrols. The peaceful race had once avoided war, but now they had no choice. Seri became one of the fastest learners. She moved with speed and silence. Her grief became her strength. And every time she trained, she thought of Mira still trapped in that lab. They were not fighting for revenge. They were fighting to save what was left. Raylan also taught them how to spread messages, how to use hacked signals to reach other. Hidden Nyari camps. Hope began to grow. Then, one night, a scout rushed into the city. Drexian supply base spotted 12 miles west. Small guard, ammo, and fuel inside. Raylan looked at Kayla. "It's time." The night was dark and quiet. Snowflakes drifted gently over the frozen ground. In the distance, the Drexian supply base stood like a sleeping beast. Metal towers glowing red. Cargo crates stacked high, and guard drones slowly circling above. Inside the shadows, Commander Raylan Ward knelt beside a rock, looking through a small scanner. 20 Nyar warriors crouched behind him. Their fur was painted with black stripes, their eyes sharp with focus. They were ready, and tonight they would. "Strike back," Raylan whispered. "Guards. 6 outside, 4 inside. One supply ship, fueling, lightly armed. That ship is our target." Kayla, the Nyari war leader, nodded. Fast, clean, no mistakes. Raylan gave the final signal. The team split into 3 units. They moved like ghosts, silent, fast, deadly, 4. The Nyari, this was their first real battle. For Raylan, this was war. The first arrow struck silently. A guard dropped without a sound. A second fell before he could shout. The Drexian drones turned their lights, scanning. But the Nyari had already slipped through the shadows. Raylan ran toward the eastern fence, using a stolen code to unlock the gate. He waved the second team. Forward, Seri was with them, leading 3 younger Nyari fighters. She held her stolen blaster tightly, her eyes fixed on the path ahead as they entered the base. Alarms began to sound. One of the Drexians had spotted a body. Too late. Raylan muttered. Go lasers lit the night sky. Red bolts flew as the guards fired wildly, but the Nyari were too fast. They struck from rooftops, from behind crates, Disappearing before they could be hit, Raylan ducked behind a metal wall and fired twice. Both shots hit their marks. He looked up and saw Sari take cover behind a fuel tank, breathing hard. "You okay?" he shouted. She nodded. "I'm ready." Outside the base, Kayla and her team reached the ship's control room. They overpowered the Drexian pilots and took control. Raylan joined them moments later. "The supplies?" Kayla asked. "Food, weapons, medicine, all here," one of her scouts reported. Raylan looked around. "We don't have long. Reinforcements are coming." Kayla tapped the ship's console. "Then we leave now." As the stolen ship lifted into the sky, the remaining Drexians fired at its engines. But it was too late. The Niar had escaped, and for the first time in many years, they had taken something back. Back at the hidden city, the stolen ship landed to cheers and tears, and YRI children ran out to greet the returning warriors. Old ones cried as they saw the food, the weapons, the supplies. It wasn't just a mission, it was a message. They were not helpless anymore. That night, a fire was lit in the center of the city. Raylan stood by it, watching the flames rise. Chaos sat around him, sharing food and stories. For the first time, there was laughter. Not much, but enough. Kayla walked up beside him. "You taught us to fight. You gave us hope." Raylan shook his head. "No, you already had that. I just helped you use it." Sari joined them, holding a small metal piece in her hand. "We found this on one of the Drexian computers," she said. "A message about another lab. Tear, moving Niar. Prisoners to a place called Sector 9 Zeta." Raylan took the chip and read it. "They're trying to hide the others." Kayla narrowed her eyes. "Then we stop hiding too." Raylan looked at the camp, the people, the flickering firelight. This wasn't just survival anymore. It was a resistance. But he knew what was coming. "This is just the beginning," he said quietly. "They'll come harder next time, stronger, more ruthless." Kayla nodded. "So will we." Meanwhile, in Drexian command. Inside a black control room, a tall Drexian officer stared at a large screen. Supply base Gamma, destroyed. Enemy, unknown force. Possible Niari survivors. Human signature detected. He turned to his men. "Commander Raylan Ward is confirmed alive, leading the rebels. Put a bounty on his head, and send the hunters." A dark figure stepped forward, armored, masked, silent. The Drexian enforcers had been released. The mountains were quiet again, but the silence felt wrong. Commander Raylan Ward stood on a cliff just above the Niari city, watching clouds gather in the sky. Snow drifted softly through the air, but something else moved beneath it. Something cold, invisible, dangerous. The resistance had grown stronger since the first strike. Raylan and the Niari had hit 3 more Drexian outposts. They had saved dozens of prisoners, stolen weapons, and spread the truth through hidden messages across nearby star systems. But victory came with a price. The Drexians were watching, and now they were hunting. Inside the command hall, Kayla stood over a map table, planning the next attack. Her eyes were sharp, her voice calm. But Raylan could sense the tension building. "We can't stay hidden forever," she said. "They will come." "They already are," Raylan replied. "I saw Drexian scouts near the East Ridge yesterday. Small team, but they weren't random. They know we're here." Kayla nodded slowly. "Then we moved the young and the wounded deeper into the caves." But just then, Sari burst into the room, holding a device. "I found something strange," she said. "A signal coming from inside the city." Kella's fur bristled. "A signal? From who?" Raylan took the device. He scanned the logs. It was a short transmission sent during the last battle: coordinates, troop size, and escape route. Someone had betrayed them. Sari looked around. eyes wide. Who would do that? Raylan didn't answer right away, but he knew. The Drexians hadn't found the city by accident. Someone inside had told them. Later that night, the cold wind howled through the cliffs. Raylan gathered his gear and moved through the city, his mind racing. He began checking every communication station, every device. Most were clean, but one was different. Inside, a small storage room near the back of the city, he found it, a hidden transmitter. Still warm, he opened the panel and froze. It had been wired by a human hand. Suddenly, he heard a click behind him. Raylan turned slowly. Standing in the doorway was Lieutenant Marcus Hale, another human who had once served with Raylan during the early Drexian campaigns. "Didn't expect to see you here, Marcus." "I could say the same," Marcus replied, holding a blaster. "You really lost it, Ray, siding with animals." Raylan clenched his jaw. "They're not animals. You saw the footage." "You know what they did?" Marcus shook his head. "It doesn't matter. Orders are orders. And you broke them. You sold out the location. You led them here. I did what I had to. The Drexians promised me a way out. A ship. Freedom." Raylan's eyes narrowed. At the cost of innocent lives, Marcus raised his gun. "Step aside, I'm finishing this." But before he could shoot, a flash of fur leaped from the shadows. Sari, fast and fierce, tackled him to the ground. The blaster fired into the ceiling. Raylan moved quickly and kicked the gun away. Kayla rushed in moments later with 2 guards. Raylan looked down at Marcus, breathing hard. "Put him in the holding pit. Deep one." Marcus spat at the ground. "They'll come anyway. You can't stop it." Raylan didn't reply, but deep down he feared those words were true. The next morning, the sky was dark. Thunder rolled across the peaks. A Niar scout ran into the city, breathless and panicked. "They're here." Raylan rushed to the watchpost and looked through the long-range scope. Dozens of Drexian ships hovered in the sky. Troop transports, war drones, and one massive command cruiser. They hadn't just sent a squad. They sent everything. Raylan turned to Kayla. "We don't have time to run. We make a stand." Kayla nodded. "We fight to protect the young, even if we fall." Siri stepped beside them, armed and ready. For Mira, for all of us. The Nayar warriors took their positions. Raylan helped set up traps, turrets, and fallback zones. And then the sky opened. The Drexians descended like a storm of metal and fire. Explosions lit the cliffs. Lasers burned the snow. Raylan fired from the front line, taking out drones one by one. Kayla led a group through the side tunnels, flanking the soldiers. Sari moved through the trees, sniping targets with quiet precision. But it wasn't enough. They were outnumbered, outgunned. Raylan saw a blast hit one of the homes. A Nayari child screamed. He grabbed his radio. "Evacuate the lower village. Fall back to Sector 3. Kayla responded. "We'll cover you." Raylan and Sari helped lead the families into the mountain caves. He looked back. Smoke filled the valley. There. City was falling. Smoke still hung in the cold air. The hidden Niari city had been attacked, half-burned and blood-stained. But it was not destroyed. Commander Raylan Ward stood beside the edge of the cliff, watching the sunrise break through the clouds. Below him, wounded Niari were being treated. Others rebuilt shelters with shaking hands. They were tired, hurt, but not broken. Behind him, Kayla and Sari approached. "We lost many," Kayla said softly. "But the people still stand." Raylan nodded. "It's time to finish this." He turned toward them and opened a hologram. Drexian. Biolab Sector 9 Zeta coordinates matched the files recovered after the betrayal. It was where Mira, Sari's sister, was last seen. It was where dozens of other Niari captives were still being held, tested on, tortured, treated like animals. This is where they keep them, Raylan said. If we can get inside, extract the prisoners, and upload the evidence to the galactic net, we can expose everything. The lies, the Drexians, the illegal war. Kayla looked at him. You want to attack their most secure facility? I don't want to, he replied. I have to. Sari stepped forward. Then I'm coming with. You? Kayla gave a single nod. So am I. The mission begins 2 days later. In the dead of night, a small stolen Drexian shuttle flew silently through enemy space. Inside were Raylan, Kayla, Sari, and a team of 6 elite Nyari warriors. They wore stolen armor. Their IDs were hacked. They had one shot as the shuttle approached Sector 9 Zeta. The crew kept their heads down. The base loomed in the distance. Black towers, glowing red lights, guarded by drones and heavy cannons. Raylan took a breath. Remember, once we land, we have 15 minutes before they know we're not real crew. They landed on Platform 6 without a hitch. The guards waved them through. Raylan led the team down a steel corridor. The deeper they went, the colder the air became. "SER," I whispered. I remember this place. Raylan nodded. We'll find her. They reached the lower lab levels. Raylan plugged in his stolen chip. Doors unlocked. Lights flickered. Then they saw it, rows of tanks. Inside, Nyari children, women, elders, asleep, frozen, hooked to machines. One of the tanks blinked. Mira.ser. I ran to her. Mira, tear. Please. Raylan started downloading all files to his datapad lab experiments, prisoner logs. Communications with Drexian Command. Suddenly, the alarm blared. They were discovered. Security breach. Intruders in Sector 9. Doors slammed. Shut, Kayla shouted. We hold them here. Raylan turned to Sari. Get Mira out of the tank. Protect her. Guards poured into the hall. Blasters lit up the darkness. The air turned red with fire and smoke. Raylan fought hard. Covering the door, Kayla slashed through enemy soldiers with speed and power. SER. I finally opened the tank. Mira fell into her arms, weak, thin, but alive. Mira, I've got you. It's okay. You're safe now, she whispered through tears. Raylan finished the upload. The files were ready to go. He slammed the emergency beacon and transmitted everything to the galactic net. Across star systems, hidden files were released. The truth was now public, and the Drexians couldn't hide anymore. The escape time to go. Raylan shouted. Kaela was injured but still standing. They carried Mira through the burning halls as explosions rocked the lab. The Drexians were desperate now, firing without aim. Raylan led the group to the upper deck, fighting every step. Just as they reached the hangar, a Drexian enforcer appeared, the same one who had hunted Raylan since Part 5. You should have stayed silent. Traitor, the enforcer growled. Raylan stepped forward. Not today. The two clashed in a brutal fight. Raylan dodged, hit, rolled, and struck again. Sari fired a shot from behind, distracting the enemy. Kayla leaped in with her blade, and together, they brought the enforcer down. The team boarded the shuttle, carrying Mira inside. As they launched into space, the lab behind them exploded, a fireball lighting up the stars. Aftermath: a galaxy awakens 1 week later. The truth spread like wildfire. The footage of Nyar children in labs, the deleted records of their protected. Status. The orders from High Drexian Command. Protests began across human colonies. Allies turned against the Drexians. The war stopped. A trial began. Raylan, once hunted, was now a hero in the rebuilt Nyari city, now filled with light and laughter. Mira sat under a tree, safe, smiling. Finally home.ser, I sat beside her, holding her hand. Raylan stood nearby, watching the sky. Kayla approached. You did it. He smiled. We did it. Final lines closing. Hukrlan looked at the stars above. He knew there were other wars, other victims, other voices still unheard. But for now, peace had returned. And for the first time in a long time, the hunted were no longer running. They were free.